The blood on my knuckles was still wet when Thomas walked into our kitchen, whistling some insufferable pop song he'd heard on the radio. I didn't look up from the raw chicken I was pounding flat with more force than necessary, each strike of the meat tenderizer echoing through our Charlottenburg apartment like gunshots. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Rough day at the mall, sweetheart? He asked in German, his voice dripping with amusement as he loosened his Hermès tie, the one I'd bought him last Christmas with money from my little security job. I continued pounding the chicken, watching the fibers break apart under the metal. Spikes 1, 2, 3. Controlled. Strikes. Precise. The same way I'd been taught to neutralize targets in close quarters combat. A teenager tried to steal a handbag. I replied in perfect, unaccented German, my voice flat. I stopped him. Thomas laughed. That particular laugh he reserved for when he thought I was being dramatic about my work as a shopping center security guard. He grabbed a beer from our Sub-Zero refrigerator, the bottle cap hissing as he twisted it off with his bare hands. Such a simple display of masculine strength that always made him feel superior. Did you chase him down the escalator? He mimicked running in place, nearly spilling his beer. Did you radio for backup on your little walkie-talkie? I set down the tenderizer carefully, deliberately, the way I'd been trained to set down weapons during decontamination. My hands were steady. They were always steady. Something like that, I said. The truth was more complicated. The teenager had been a 28-year-old Chechen separatist I'd identified from my time in naval special warfare. The handbag had been a dead drop for classified documents being smuggled out of Germany. And the blood on my knuckles wasn't from some clumsy scuffle. It was from breaking his nose in 3 places before, restraining him for the BND agents, who'd been tailing him for 6 weeks, but Thomas didn't need to know that. Thomas didn't know a lot of things. You know what Stefan said today? Thomas continued, switching to English now as he always did when he wanted to practice. His English was good, textbook good, but lacked the subtle rhythms that came from actually living in a language. He said his wife, she makes more than him now. Can you imagine? A woman making more than her husband? I could imagine it quite easily. My actual salary, deposited monthly into an account Thomas had never seen, was triple what he made as a mid-level project manager at Siemens. But the checking account we shared, the one where my security guard paychecks appeared every 2 weeks, showed $2,100 after taxes. Just enough to be respectable, but not enough to threaten his ego. That must be difficult for Stefan, I said, turning on the faucet to wash my hands. The water ran pink, then clear. Exactly. Thomas moved closer, energized by what he perceived as my agreement. A man should provide. It's natural. It's biology. He took a long pull from his beer, his eyes scanning the kitchen, the high-end appliances, the imported tile, the custom cabinetry. I'm glad you're not like that. You understand your role. My role. I dried my hands on a kitchen towel embroidered with little German proverbs his mother had given us. Ordnung ist das halbe Leben. Order is half of life. She'd probably meant it as a gentle hint that I should keep the house cleaner. If only she knew how much I valued order. How order had kept me alive in Kandahar, in Mosul, in places that didn't officially exist on any map. Speaking of roles, Thomas continued, pulling his phone from his pocket, I'm having some colleagues over Friday night. Big presentation coming up. I need to make a good impression. How many? I asked, already calculating. Friday was supposed to be my debrief with Captain Morrison about the Chechen operative. I'd have to reschedule. 8, maybe 10. Nothing fancy, just drinks, some appetizers. He scrolled through his phone, not looking at me. Actually, if you could wear that black dress, the conservative one. And maybe, don't talk too much. Stefan's boss will be there, very traditional guy. Old school. Something cold and sharp settled in my chest, the same feeling I got 3 seconds before an IED detonated. That sixth sense that had kept me breathing through 6 years of operations most people didn't have clearance to hear about. You want me to be quiet? I said. Not a question. Not quiet, just You know how you get sometimes. Asking too many questions, acting like you know things. He finally looked up, his expression almost pitying. These are important people, Mira. Let the men talk business. You can chat with the wives about shopping or whatever, shopping. Of course, I thought about the last time I'd gone shopping. Shopping for intelligence in a Damascus safe house while mortar rounds whistled overhead. Shopping for the right translation of an intercepted message that saved 43 American lives. Shopping for the precise angle to insert my knife between the fourth and fifth ribs of a high-value target who'd been selling classified NATO intel to Russian intelligence. I understand, I said. Thomas smiled, relieved. I knew you would. You're not like other women. You get it. He kissed my forehead like I was a child who'd finally learned her lesson. I'm going to shower. Can you make that chicken thing I like? The one with the mushroom sauce? Of course. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I waited until I heard the bathroom door close, until the shower roared to life. Then I pulled out my secure phone from its hiding place behind the spice rack, tucked between the cardamom and the coriander where Thomas would never look because he thought spices were women's. Business. 3 messages waiting. Morrison. Status update on the Chechen? Morrison. Embassy is pleased. Clean work. Morrison. New briefing materials available. Coded as usual. I typed quickly. Friday meeting needs reschedule. Husband hosting. Will confirm alternate time. The response came within seconds. Understood. Saturday 0600. Same location. I deleted the conversation, the messages vanishing like they'd never existed. 6 years of doing this, living 2 lives, speaking 2 languages, being 2 people, and Thomas had never suspected. Not once, the shower shut off. I heard Thomas humming that same annoying song. I returned to the chicken, coating each piece in flour, then egg, then breadcrumbs. Methodical, precise. The same way I'd been trained to assemble a rifle blindfolded, to pack a parachute, to memorize enemy positions in the dark. My phone buzzed. The regular one this time, the one Thomas knew about, Mom. Call when you can, honey. Your father's asking about Thanksgiving. I smiled. Thanksgiving at the family farm in Montana, where my father, a retired Army Ranger, would make too much food and tell the same stories he told every year. Stories about his service, carefully edited for civilian consumption. He was one of the few people who knew the truth about my 6 years in naval special warfare. One of the few people who understood why I'd taken this particular assignment in Berlin. Why aren't you married to someone better? He'd asked me once after meeting Thomas for the first time. Because someone better would ask too many questions, I'd replied. He'd nodded slowly, understanding immediately. In our world, sometimes the best cover was hiding in plain sight. Sometimes the most effective disguise was being underestimated. Thomas emerged from the bathroom in his silk robe, another gift from me, his hair still damp. He'd put on cologne, the expensive kind. The kind men wore when they wanted to feel powerful. Smells amazing, he said, peering over my shoulder at the chicken sizzling in the pan. You should cook more often. You're good at it. I was good at a lot of things. Cooking was probably number 47 on that list. Right after speaking Farsi, and just before disarming car bombs. I'll keep that in mind, I said. We ate dinner on the balcony, the Berlin skyline glittering before us like a jewelry box someone had spilled. Thomas talked about his day, the meetings, the politics, the careful navigation of corporate hierarchy. He talked about Stefan's wife again, shaking his head in disapproval. A woman should support her husband, he said, cutting his chicken with the precision of someone who'd never had to field strip a weapon under fire. Not compete with him. Don't you agree? I agree, I said, because it was easier. Because I'd learned that some battles weren't worth fighting. Not yet. That's why I love you. Thomas reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You understand what matters. Not like these modern women who think they have to prove something all the time. I looked down at our joined hands. His were soft, moisturized, manicured every 3 weeks at an expensive salon in Mitte. Mine looked soft too, but only if you didn't look closely at the calluses, at the small scars that came from 6 years of holding weapons, scaling walls, and hand-to-hand combat that I wasn't supposed to admit existed. "I'm lucky to have you," I said. And the terrible thing was, part of me meant it. Not because Thomas was a good husband, he wasn't, but because he was the perfect cover. The perfect excuse for why a decorated naval special, warfare translator, was working security at a shopping mall in Berlin instead of doing what everyone assumed decorated naval special warfare translators did after they left the service. Most people thought I'd retired, gone soft, found a nice German boy and settled down. The truth was more classified than that. After dinner, Thomas settled into his usual spot on the couch, his laptop balanced on his knees as he prepared for tomorrow's presentation. I cleaned the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters. The perfect domestic routine. My secure phone buzzed again. I excused myself to use the bathroom, locked the door, and read the message. Morrison. New intel on the Chechen network. 3 more operatives in Berlin. Suspect activity at your location. My location. The shopping mall. Of course, me understood. Will maintain cover and observe. Morrison. Careful. They know what you look like. Morrison. If compromised, extract immediately. I deleted the messages and flushed the toilet for effect. When I returned to the living room, Thomas was laughing at something on his screen. "Come look at this," he called, gesturing me over. I sat beside him, close enough to be affectionate, far enough to see the entire room in my peripheral vision. Old habits. He'd pulled up a YouTube video, some comedian making jokes about women and shopping. The premise was tired. Woman sees sale, woman loses mind, woman buys things she doesn't need. The audience howled with laughter. "This is you," Thomas said, elbowing me gently. "This is every woman," I forced a smile. "I don't shop that much. You work at a mall. You must be tempted every day." He shook his head, amused. "It's amazing you come home with any paycheck at all." The truth was, I hadn't spent money on myself in 3 months. Everything I earned, my real earnings, went into investments, into preparation for the day when I could stop pretending. The day when Thomas would learn exactly who he'd married. But that day wasn't today. "I have good self-control," I said. Thomas laughed harder at that, as if the concept of me having self-control was the funniest joke he'd heard all week. If he only knew. If he knew about the 12-week selection course I'd survived, the physical and psychological torture designed to break even the strongest candidates. If he knew about the operations where self-control meant the difference between a successful mission and a body bag. "You're adorable," he said, kissing the top of my head. My little security guard, little. That word again. I was 5'6", 140 pounds, with a body fat percentage of 18%. I could run 6 miles in under 42 minutes, bench press my own body weight, and hold a plank position for 8 minutes straight. I spoke 7 languages fluently and could curse in 12 more. I had 2 bronze stars, a purple heart, and a classified number of confirmed neutralizations. But sure, little. "I'm going to bed," I announced, standing. "Early shift tomorrow?" Thomas was already absorbed in his laptop again, probably reviewing slides. "Don't forget to set out my blue suit. The meeting's at 9. I'll remember." In our bedroom, I changed into the oversized t-shirt I slept in, soft, worn, deliberately unsexy. The kind of thing that said, "I've given up trying to impress you." Another layer of the disguise. But once Thomas was asleep, once his breathing settled into the deep rhythm of someone who had nothing to fear in the dark, I would slip out of bed. I would retrieve my secure laptop from its hiding place. I would review the briefing materials about the Chechen network. And I would plan, because that was what I did. That was who I was beneath the cover story, beneath the uniform of a shopping mall security guard, beneath the role of the supportive wife who knew her place. I was a weapon, carefully calibrated, patiently waiting, and sooner or later I would be needed. The morning came too early, as it always did. The alarm shrieked at 5:15 a.m., dragging me from the 3 hours of sleep I'd managed between reviewing intelligence reports and Thomas's unconscious snoring. I silenced it immediately, a habit from years of covert operations where every sound could mean discovery. Thomas didn't stir. He never did. He could sleep through anything: fire alarms, thunderstorms, the occasional midnight phone call that I took in the closet with my secure phone pressed to my ear. The apartment was dark and silent. Berlin in November was a cave, the sun not rising until nearly 8. I moved through the shadows by memory, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. In the kitchen, I made coffee, strong, black, Turkish style, the way I'd learned in Istanbul during a 3-month operation that officially never happened. While the coffee brewed, I did my morning routine. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 50 pull-ups on the bar I'd installed in the spare room closet, hidden behind winter coats that Thomas never touched. Then stretching, deep, painful stretching that kept my muscles loose and ready. Ready for what? I didn't let myself think about too much. That way lay paranoia. By 6 a.m., I was showered and dressed in my uniform: black pants, black polo shirt with the mall's logo, black combat boots that looked like regular boots but had steel toes and knife-resistant lining. My hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No jewelry except my wedding ring. No makeup except a touch of concealer to hide the dark circles under my eyes. I looked exactly like what I was supposed to be: a 32-year-old woman working retail security to make ends meet while her husband climbed the corporate ladder. Thomas stumbled into the kitchen at 7:00, bleary-eyed and searching for the coffee I'd already prepared. "You're up early," he mumbled, pouring himself a cup. "Always am." "Right, your important security job." He grinned, pleased with his own wit. "Protecting the world from shoplifters and teenagers on skateboards?" "Someone has to," I said mildly. He was wearing the blue suit I'd laid out, the one that made him look like every other middle manager in every other European corporation. Interchangeable, forgettable, the opposite of how he saw himself. "I'll be late tonight," he said, gulping his coffee too fast. "Dinner with the team after the presentation? Celebrating." "Celebrating what?" "The presentation. Keep up, Mira." He said it like I was slow, like I couldn't possibly understand the complexities of his work. "If it goes well, I'm looking at a promotion. Maybe even a transfer to Munich." Munich. That was new. "When were you going to tell me about Munich?" I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral. Thomas shrugged, already moving toward the door, checking his phone. "It's not definite. Might not happen for 6 months. But if it does..." He turned back to me, his expression softening into what he probably thought was tenderness. "It'll be good for us. Fresh start, better position. More money. We could buy a house, maybe start thinking about kids." Kids. The word landed like a flashbang in an enclosed space. "We've talked about this," I said carefully. "I'm not ready." "You're 32, Mira, not getting any younger." He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. "Besides, once we have kids, you won't need to work anymore. You can stay home, be a real mother." A real mother. As opposed to what I was now? A fake wife, apparently. "We'll talk about it later," I said. The same thing I'd been saying for 3 years. Yeah. Okay. He was already halfway out the door, his mind on the presentation, on the promotion, on the life he'd planned without asking me. "Don't wait up." The door closed. I stood in the kitchen, coffee cup in hand, and let myself feel the anger for exactly 60 seconds. That was the rule. 60 seconds to feel it, to acknowledge it, to let it burn through my system. Then box it up. Store it away. Move forward. At 61 seconds, I was calm again. I grabbed my bag, regulation black backpack that looked like every other security guard's bag but contained items that definitely weren't regulation. My secure phone, a compact Glock 19 with a suppressor, broken down into components that would pass casual inspection, a knife designed to look like a pen, and a small medkit with supplies that went far beyond Band-Aids and aspirin. The U-Bahn was crowded with early morning commuters, everyone buried in their phones or newspapers, sealed in their own private bubbles. I stood near the door, my back to the wall, automatically scanning faces, looking for threats, for recognition, for anything out of place. Old habits. They'd die with me. The Neukölln Arkaden shopping center was a massive complex in South Berlin. 4 stories of retail therapy designed to separate people from their money. I'd been working here for 8 months, ever since Captain Morrison had called me back from retirement with an offer I couldn't refuse. "We need eyes in Berlin," he'd said. "Someone who can blend in, who speaks the language, who won't raise suspicions. You want me to work mall security?" I'd asked, certain I'd misunderstood. "I want you to monitor a suspected smuggling route. Every 3rd Wednesday, someone's moving something through that shopping center. Documents, maybe data. We don't know what, we don't know who. But we know it's happening. And my cover? You're a security guard. You're married to a German national. You're living a quiet life in Berlin. No one looks twice at security guards." He'd been right. For 8 months, I'd been invisible. Just another underpaid employee in a black polo shirt, breaking up fights between teenagers and chasing down shoplifters. Except I'd also identified 6 dead drops, photographed 14 suspected intelligence operatives, and yesterday, personally apprehended a Chechen separatist who'd been on 3 different international watch lists. Not bad for a little security job. I checked in at 8 a.m., scanning my ID card and nodding to Klaus, the day shift supervisor. He was 63, former Berlin police, counting down the days to retirement. He thought I was sweet, quiet, a bit too educated for the job, but hey, the economy was tough. "Morning, Mira," he said, barely looking up from his coffee and newspaper. "Quiet night. Some kids tried to graffiti the parking garage, but the cameras caught them." "I'll check the footage," I said. "You're too thorough." Klaus chuckled. "It's just kids." "Kids being kids." I smiled my mild, agreeable smile and headed to the security office. The room was small, windowless, lined with monitors showing every angle of the shopping center. During the day, 3 guards rotated, 1 on the monitors, 1 on patrol, 1 on standby. During my shift, I usually volunteered for monitor duty. Better angle to observe, to record, to notice patterns. The morning passed slowly. The shopping center filled with people, mothers with strollers, elderly couples on their daily walks, teenagers skipping school. The usual rhythm, but at 10:47 a.m. I saw him, 3rd floor near the electronics store. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, dark hair, athletic build. He was pretending to look at smartphones, but his eyes kept darting to the food court entrance. Waiting for someone. I zoomed in with the camera, capturing his face. My memory, trained through years of target identification drills, flashed with recognition. I'd seen this face before. In a briefing file, 3 weeks ago, Yevgeny Volkov, FSB, Russian Foreign Intelligence, suspected of coordinating information exchanges across Western Europe, and he was here. In my shopping center, waiting for someone, I reached for my secure phone, keeping my movements casual in case anyone walked in. Typed quickly, package identified. 3rd floor. Need backup? Morrison's response came fast, negative. Observe only. Do not engage, do not engage. The words every operator hated, but orders were orders. I switched the monitor to record, making sure I captured every angle. Volkov checked his watch, looked around, pulled out his phone, frowned at it, put it away. He was nervous. That was interesting. FSB officers weren't usually nervous. At 11:03, another man appeared. Younger, maybe mid-30s, wearing an expensive suit that screamed successful businessman. He carried a leather messenger bag, the kind you could buy at any luggage store. Completely unremarkable except for one detail, a small red string tied to the handle. Recognition signal. The 2 men didn't acknowledge each other directly. Instead, they both moved toward the bathroom near the food court. Standard tradecraft. Go in separately, exchange whatever needed to be exchanged, leave separately. I switched cameras, tracking them. But the bathroom had no internal surveillance, privacy laws, so I could only watch the entrance. They were inside for exactly 2 minutes and 43 seconds. When they emerged, Volkov was empty-handed. The businessman still had his messenger bag, but the red string was gone. The exchange had happened. I photographed them both as they left, capturing their faces from multiple angles. Then I sat back, my heart rate steady at 62 beats per minute, and compiled my report. Whatever they'd traded in that bathroom, it was now in play. And somewhere in the vast intelligence apparatus I'd once been part of, someone would be very interested to know that Yevgeny Volkov was operating in Berlin. My secure phone buzzed. Morrison. Excellent work. Continue monitoring. Friday briefing still on for Saturday, 0600. Me. Understood. I deleted the messages and turned my attention back to the monitors. Just another day at my little security job. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Thomas was giving his presentation about quarterly projections and market penetration, I was documenting actual penetration, the kind that threatened national security and cost lives. But when I got home tonight, I would smile and ask him how his day went. I would listen to him talk about the presentation, about the promotion, about Munich. I would make dinner and clean up and play the role I'd been assigned, because that was the mission. And I never failed my missions. The rest of my shift passed without incident. Klaus relieved me at 4 p.m. and I took the U-Bahn home, my mind still cataloging the details of the Volkov exchange. The facial tics, the body language, the precise timing. All of it mattered. All of it could be the piece that broke open a larger operation. The apartment was empty when I arrived. Thomas wouldn't be home for hours, probably drunk on success and expensive wine with his colleagues. I had time. I changed out of my uniform into comfortable clothes, yoga pants and a sweatshirt, and retrieved my secure laptop from its hiding place. The briefing materials Morrison had mentioned were waiting in my encrypted inbox. As I read, my expression didn't change. But inside, something cold and sharp was taking shape. The Chechen network was larger than expected. And it wasn't just about smuggling documents. They were moving people, specific people with specific skills, engineers, scientists, individuals with access to sensitive technology, and they were using Berlin as a hub. More specifically, they were using my shopping center. The timeline in the briefing showed a pattern. Every third Wednesday for the past 6 months, there had been activity. Sometimes it was documents. Sometimes it was data transfers. Sometimes it was just meetings, brief conversations that looked like chance encounters but were anything but. Tomorrow was Wednesday. The third Wednesday of November. My phone, the regular one, buzzed with a text from Thomas. Thomas, presentation went great. Celebrating. Don't wait up. Might crash at Stefan's. At Stefan's. Right. That was his code for, I'm going to drink too much and I don't want you to see me stumble in at 3 a.m. Me. Congratulations. Have fun, I meant it too. The more time he spent away, the more time I had to work. I spent the next 3 hours reviewing everything we knew about the Chechen network. Names, faces, known associates. The web was complex, spanning multiple countries and jurisdictions. But here, in Berlin, in my shopping center, was where several threads converged. At 8 p.m., I made myself dinner, pasta with vegetables, protein shake, and ate while continuing to study the files. This was how I'd lived for 6 years. Missions didn't end at 5 p.m. Threats didn't take weekends off. The work was constant, consuming, and I'd loved it. Part of me still did. At 10 p.m., my secure phone rang. Actual call, not text. That was unusual. This is Morrison, the voice said when I answered. Clipped, efficient, all business, sir. I'm moving the briefing up, tonight. Can you get to the safe house by midnight? I glanced at the clock. Yes, sir. Good, we have new intel. Situation's escalating faster than expected. A pause. Come prepared for rapid deployment. Rapid deployment. That meant weapons, gear, the whole package. Understood, sir. The line went dead. I sat for a moment, letting the implications sink in. Rapid deployment meant something big was about to happen. Something that required more than just observation and documentation. Something that would blow my cover wide open. For 8 months, I'd been Mira Weber, the security guard married to Thomas Weber. For 8 months, I'd played small, played quiet, played the role of a woman who knew her place. But maybe, just maybe, that was about to change. I pulled out my go bag from the back of the closet, hidden behind shoeboxes and winter sweaters. Inside was everything I'd need: tactical clothing, body armor, weapons, ammunition, false documents, cash in 3 different currencies. The bag I'd hoped I'd never have to use. I changed quickly, efficiently. Black tactical pants, black compression shirt, black jacket. My hair twisted into a tight bun. No jewelry, no wedding ring. That woman, Mira Weber, the security guard, stayed behind in the apartment. The woman who left at 11:15 p.m. was someone else entirely. The safe house was in Kreuzberg, a nondescript apartment building that looked like 100 others in the neighborhood. I used my key, one of 3 in Berlin, and took the stairs to the 3rd floor. Morrison was already there, along with 2 others I recognized: Lieutenant Carter from Intelligence Analysis and Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez from Tactical Operations. Seeing Rodriguez meant this was serious. You didn't pull him out of rotation unless you expected things to go kinetic. Agent Weber, Morrison said, using my old title. Not security guard. Not little. Agent. Sir. Situation has developed. The exchange you documented this morning, we've identified the package. It wasn't documents or data. It was a timetable. He pulled up images on a laptop, the same businessman I'd photographed, the same messenger bag, but now enhanced and analyzed. Technical breakdowns of what he'd been carrying. They're planning something for tomorrow, Morrison continued. Something big. And it's happening at your location. My location. The shopping center. What kind of something? I asked. We don't know exactly. But communications intercepts suggest a high-value extraction. Someone currently in Berlin. Someone who doesn't want to be here anymore. The Chechens are helping them disappear. Who? Morrison exchanged glances with Carter. That's classified above your current clearance. But what I can tell you is that if this person leaves Berlin, it's a significant blow to Western intelligence operations. We need to prevent that extraction. Rules of engagement? Rodriguez asked. Always the practical one. Minimize civilian casualties. Use of force authorized if necessary to prevent target from escaping. We have diplomatic clearance from German intelligence, but this needs to be quiet. No international incidents. You're asking me to conduct a tactical operation in the middle of a crowded shopping center, I said. During business hours. I'm asking you to do your job, Morrison replied. The job you signed up for 6 years ago? He was right. This was the job. Not playing security guard. Not pretending to be someone's little wife. This, operations, missions, making impossible calls in impossible situations. I'll need support, I said. Rodriguez and a 4-man team will be on standby. But you're our eyes inside. You're the one who knows the location, knows the patterns. This is your operation, Agent Weber. My operation. The words settled over me like an old, comfortable coat. How long had it been since I'd run an operation? How long since someone had trusted me with something that mattered? Equipment? I asked. Rodriguez opened a tactical bag. Inside was everything I'd need. Earpiece communicator. Compact weapon systems, surveillance gear, restraints. The tools of the trade. We go at 700, Morrison said. You'll be in position before the center opens. Rodriguez's team will maintain perimeter positions. When the extraction attempt happens, you identify and neutralize. Clean, quiet, efficient. And if it goes loud? I asked. Then it goes loud. But you make damn sure that target doesn't leave German soil. We spent the next hour going over the operation plan. Entry points, exit routes, fallback positions, communication protocols. The familiar rhythm of mission prep, the careful choreography of organized violence. By 1:00 a.m., I was back in the apartment. Thomas still wasn't home. His text had said he might crash at Stefan's, and apparently he'd meant it. I showered, washing away the tactical grease and gun oil smell. Braided my hair tight, set 3 alarms for 5 a.m., and then I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about tomorrow. Somewhere in this city, someone was planning to disappear. Someone important enough that international intelligence services were mobilizing to stop them. And I, the little security guard, the quiet wife who knew her place, would be the one to prevent it. The irony was almost funny. Almost. At 3:30 a.m., I heard the front door open. Thomas stumbled in, trying to be quiet and failing spectacularly. He bumped into the hallway table, knocked something over, cursed softly in German. I didn't move. Didn't acknowledge him. Just lay there in the dark, listening to him fumble through the apartment, eventually collapsing onto the couch instead of coming to bed. Perfect. He wouldn't notice when I left at 5 Saar. When my alarm went off, I silenced it immediately and slipped out of bed. Thomas was snoring on the couch, still in his suit, smelling like whiskey and cigar smoke. I looked at him for a long moment, this man who thought he knew me, who thought he'd married someone small and manageable. What would he think if he could see me now? If he could see the weapons I was loading, the body armor I was strapping on, the cold calculation in my eyes as I prepared for a mission that could end with bodies on the floor? Would he finally understand who he'd really married? Or would he just see it as another betrayal, another way I'd failed to be the woman he wanted me to be? I left the apartment at 5:45 a.m., my tactical gear hidden under a long coat. The city was still dark, the streets empty except for early morning workers and all-night partiers stumbling home. The U-Bahn was nearly empty. I sat near the door, my go-bag between my feet, and ran through the operation one more time in my head. Every scenario, every contingency, every possible outcome. By 6:30, I was in position. The shopping center wouldn't open until 10 but I had access to the security office. Klaus wouldn't arrive until 8 ally. That gave me time to set up, to position Rodriguez's team, to prepare. My earpiece crackled to life. Command to Weber. Radio check. Weber reads you 5 by 5. Rodriguez and team are in position. Perimeter secure. Copy that. I pulled up the security monitors, systematically checking every camera, every angle. The shopping center was empty except for cleaning crews and a few early vendors setting up in the food court. Normal. Everything was normal. But in 7 hours, that would change. In 7 hours, someone would attempt an extraction, and I would be waiting. I checked my weapons one more time. Glock 19 in my shoulder holster, backup piece on my ankle, knife strapped to my thigh, restraints on my belt. I was dressed like a security guard, same black polo, same black pants. But underneath, I was armored and armed for war, the perfect disguise. Just like always, my secure phone buzzed. Morrison. Final intel update. Target is likely female, early 30s, traveling with at least 2 escorts. Expect resistance, female, early 30s. That could describe half the women who would pass through this shopping center today. Me. Distinguishing features? Morrison, unknown. Will update as intel develops. Excellent. Find a needle in a haystack while preventing an international incident and avoiding civilian casualties. Just another Wednesday. The morning crept forward. Klaus arrived at 8:00, surprised to see me already there. Early day, Mira? Couldn't sleep, I said, which was true enough. Thought I'd come in early, catch up on some reports. He nodded, satisfied with this explanation. Klaus was a good man, a thorough professional, but he lacked imagination. It would never occur to him that the quiet woman who worked the monitors was anything other than what she appeared to be. At 9 WAM, Morrison's voice crackled in my earpiece. Updated intel. Target may be traveling with diplomatic credentials. Could complicate extraction. Diplomatic credentials. That meant if this went wrong, if I stopped the wrong person, there would be international hell to pay. Understood, I murmured, keeping my voice low. Klaus glanced over. You say something? Just talking to myself, I smiled. Bad habit. The shopping center opened at 10 People began flowing in, the usual morning crowd. I watched them all, cataloging faces, looking for anything out of place. At 10:47, the same time Volkov had appeared yesterday, I saw her, 3rd floor, near the electronics store. Female, early 30s, blonde hair, expensive clothes. She was flanked by two men in dark suits, both with the bearing of professional security. They moved through the crowd with purpose, not shopping, not browsing. Moving toward something, my heart rate stayed steady. Training. Possible target identified, I said quietly into my mic. Third floor, heading toward the north corridor. Copy, Rodriguez's voice. Do we have confirmation? Negative. Visual assessment only. The woman and her escorts disappeared into the corridor that led to the parking garage. That was interesting. Most people came in from the parking garage, not left through it, unless they were leaving in a specific vehicle. A vehicle that was waiting for them. I'm moving to intercept, I said, already standing. Klaus looked up from his coffee. Everything okay? Just checking something. Back in 5. I moved through the shopping center quickly but not urgently. Running would draw attention. I was just another security guard on patrol, nothing to see here. But under my jacket, my hand rested on my weapon. The north corridor was service access, loading docks, storage, staff areas. The general public rarely came here. It was perfect for a quiet extraction. I heard voices ahead. German, spoken quickly and quietly. The woman and her escorts moving toward the loading dock exit. Target confirmed, I murmured. Moving to intercept. Weber, wait for backup, Morrison's voice in my ear. But I couldn't wait. In 30 seconds, they'd be through that door. In 60 seconds, they'd be in a vehicle. In 2 minutes, they'd be gone. Negative, I said. Engaging now. I turned the corner into the loading dock area and found myself face to face with 3 very surprised people. The woman saw me first. Her eyes widened, and in that moment, I knew. She recognized me. Not as Mira Weber, security guard. She recognized me as someone else. Someone from before. You, she breathed in English. American accent. You're supposed to be retired? I finished for her. Not quite. The 2 escorts reacted instantly, hands moving toward weapons. But I was faster. 6 years of training, 8 months of pretending to be slow and harmless. And now, finally, permission to be what I actually was. I had my weapon out and aimed before either of them cleared their holsters. Don't, I said calmly. Hands where I can see them. For a frozen moment, we all stood there. Mexican standoff in a Berlin loading dock. Then the woman did something I didn't expect. She laughed. Of course they sent you, she said. Should have known. Should have fucking known they'd activate the ghost. The ghost. That had been my operational name. The one that appeared on classified reports with so much redaction you couldn't tell if I was male or female, let alone anything else about me. Who are you? I asked, though I suspected I already knew the answer. I think you know, she replied. And I think you know why I'm leaving. I did know. In that moment, looking at her face, it all clicked into place. This wasn't just any defector. This was someone from inside. Someone who'd seen too much, knew too much. Someone whose disappearance would cause tsunamis through the intelligence community. I can't let you go, I said. Can't or won't. She tilted her head, studying me. Last I heard, you'd quit. Married some German guy. Playing house in Berlin. That's what everyone said. The ghost went domestic. Everyone was wrong. Apparently. She glanced at her escorts, then back to me. Here's the thing, though. I have diplomatic immunity. You shoot me, you create an international incident. Germany won't protect you. Anthropic won't protect you. You'll be hung out to dry. She wasn't wrong. The diplomatic credentials were real. I could see her passport case peeking out of her jacket. If I pulled this trigger, I'd be the one in international custody, not her. But I also knew what Morrison had said. Use of force authorized. This was bigger than diplomatic immunity, bigger than international incidents. Then I guess we're both taking a risk, I said. My earpiece crackled. Weber, backup is 60 seconds out. Hold position, 60 seconds. That was an eternity in a tactical situation. The woman smiled, reading my expression. You won't shoot me. You're too good at following orders. That's what made you valuable. You always followed orders. She was testing me. Seeing if the ghost was still the same person who'd followed commands without question, who'd pulled triggers when told, who'd been the perfect weapon in the perfect system. Maybe I had been that person once. But that was before I'd spent 8 months being called little by a man who didn't know me. Before I'd learned what it felt like to be underestimated, dismissed, treated like something small and manageable. I'd hated it. But I'd also learned from it. "You're right," I said. "I do follow orders. And my orders are very clear." I shot her in the leg. Not a kill shot. Not even close. But enough to drop her. Enough to keep her from running. Enough to make the point that diplomatic immunity didn't mean immunity from consequences. The escorts moved. But so did I. Training kicked in. Pure muscle memory. Disarm, disable, control. 3 seconds, maybe 4, and both men were on the ground, groaning, their weapons kicked across the loading dock. The woman clutched her leg, blood seeping through her fingers. She looked up at me with something like respect. "That's new," she said through gritted teeth. The ghost I knew would have asked permission first. "Permission granted," I replied, pulling out restraints. Rodriguez and his team burst through the loading dock door, weapons drawn, moving with the practiced precision of operators who'd done this 1,000 times. "Target secured," I said into my mic. "Need medical for the leg wound. Non-life-threatening." "Copy that," Morrison's voice. "Excellent work, Agent Weber." Agent Weber, not Mira, not little security guard. "Agent." The woman watched as Rodriguez's team cuffed her escorts and began processing the scene. "They're going to ask questions," she said to me. "About why you're here. About who you really are. Let them ask. And your husband? The German guy? What are you going to tell him?" I holstered my weapon. The truth, probably. That his unemployable wife with her little security job just prevented an international intelligence disaster. She laughed again, despite the pain. "I almost feel sorry for him." "Don't," I said. "He'll be fine. Men like him always are." The debrief took 4 hours. Morrison, Carter, Rodriguez, and 3 others whose names I didn't know, all asking questions, all documenting every second of the operation. The shot was clean, I explained for the 3rd time. Minimal risk to the target. Maximum disruption to the extraction. "You exceeded the parameters of engagement," one of the nameless analysts said. "You were supposed to prevent escape, not shoot a diplomatic asset." "She's not an asset," I replied calmly. "She's a traitor, and she's in custody." "Mission accomplished," Morrison backed me up. Agent Weber made the correct tactical decision under pressure. The operation was a success. Eventually, they let me go. It was almost 8 p.m. I'd been on duty for 14 hours straight. My hands were steady, my mind was clear, but underneath, the adrenaline crash was starting to hit. Rodriguez caught me as I was leaving. "Good work today," he said. "Like old times." "Better than old times," I replied. "Yeah?" He grinned. "How so?" "I didn't have to ask permission." He laughed. "That's the ghost I remember." I took the U-Bahn home, still in my security guard uniform, the tactical gear packed away in my go bag. To anyone watching, I was just another tired worker heading home after a long day. They had no idea what kind of day it had actually been. The apartment was dark when I arrived. Thomas's shoes were by the door, different shoes than this morning, which meant he'd come home, changed, and left again. Probably went back to the office or out with colleagues again. A note on the kitchen counter, written in his careful handwriting. Went to Stefan's for dinner. "Don't wait up. We need to talk about Munich when I get back." Team Munich. Right, the transfer he'd mentioned. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then I opened my laptop, the regular one, not the secure one, and started typing. Subject: Transfer request, immediate to. "Captain Morrison, sir? As of today's operation, my cover in Berlin is compromised. Target recognized me from previous operations. Request immediate extraction and reassignment. Additionally, I'm terminating my marriage to Thomas Weber. 8 months of this assignment has been sufficient. I have the intel you needed. Time to move on. Respectfully, Agent Mira Hoffman." Weber was the cover name. I read it over once, then hit send. My secure phone buzzed within minutes. Morrison. Request approved. Extraction scheduled for Friday. Good work, Agent Hoffman. Friday. In 2 days, I would be gone. Mira Weber would disappear, and Agent Hoffman would resurface somewhere else, under some other cover, with some other mission. And Thomas? Thomas would come home one day to an empty apartment and a divorce attorney's business card. Would he understand then? Would he finally realize that his little security guard had been something else entirely? Probably not. Men like Thomas saw what they wanted to see. He would probably decide I'd run off with another man, that I'd been having an affair, that I'd been the problem all along. He would never know the truth. He didn't have the clearance. I poured myself a glass of wine, expensive wine that I'd bought. From grapes I'd probably been around when we secured a vineyard in Tuscany during an operation 3 years ago, and stood on the balcony, looking out at Berlin. This city had been my home for 8 months, but it had never really been mine. Just like the apartment, just like the marriage, just like the name Mira Weber, all of it was cover. All of it was temporary. The only thing that was real was the work. The missions. The ghost, my phone, the regular one, buzzed. A text from Thomas, home late, very late. We need to talk about Friday night. Your dress, the dinner, the guests? Important? Friday night. The dinner party with his colleagues. The one where I was supposed to be quiet and play the good wife. Friday night I would be gone. I smiled and typed back, looking forward to it. Let him plan his little dinner party. Let him imagine me in that conservative black dress, smiling politely while the men talked business. By Friday, Agent Mira Hoffman would be halfway across the world, and his little security guard would be nothing but a memory. The thought should have made me feel triumphant, victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that made Berlin feel like it was wrapped in wet wool. I woke at 5:15 a.m., same as always, but this time Thomas was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table in his robe, staring at his phone with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're up early, I said, moving toward the coffee maker. Couldn't sleep. He didn't look up. Mira, we need to talk, those 4 words. The ones that never meant anything good. I poured my coffee, keeping my movements relaxed. 24 hours until extraction. I could play this role for 1 more day. About Munich? About everything. He finally looked at me, and something in his eyes was different, harder. I got a very strange call last night. From building security. My pulse didn't change. Training. Oh? They said our apartment was flagged. Something about unusual network activity. Someone accessing encrypted servers from our IP address. He stood up and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. Anger or fear, I couldn't tell. You want to tell me what that's about? I could have lied. Should have lied. Maintained the cover story until extraction. But looking at him, this man who'd spent 8 months making me feel small, who'd mocked my intelligence, who'd planned a future without asking me, something inside me snapped, not violently, quietly, like a lock clicking open. I'm a Naval Special Warfare Translator, I said calmly. I work for U.S. intelligence. The security guard job was cover for an operation monitoring Russian and Chechen intelligence networks operating through Berlin. Yesterday, I prevented an international intelligence asset from defecting. I shot her in the leg, actually. It made the news, though they didn't use my name. Thomas stared at me, blinked, stared some more. That's not funny, Mira. It's not a joke. He laughed, but it was hollow. You're a security guard. You make $2,100 a month. You barely finished university. I have 2 degrees, actually. International Relations and Arabic Studies from Georgetown. I speak 7 languages fluently. I've conducted operations in 14 countries. And my actual salary is $187,000 annually, plus hazard pay. I sipped my coffee. The $2,100 was part of the cover. His face went through several colors. Red, white, purple. You're lying. Am I? I pulled out my secure phone, the one I'd kept hidden for 8 months, and showed him the screen. Official communications, classified briefings. My real identification badge with my real name, Hoffman, M. Naval Special Warfare. Clearance. Test CI. He grabbed the phone, his hands trembling. Read the screen. Read it again. Hoffman? He whispered. Your name isn't even Weber? Weber was the cover. I took your name when we married because it helped the cover story. But my real name is Mira Hoffman. I took the phone back. And before you ask, yes, everything about us was real. The marriage was real. My feelings were real, at least at first. But the job, the salary, the helpless woman who couldn't land an interview, that was all operational cover. Thomas sat down heavily. You've been lying to me for 8 months. 5 years, actually. Since we met. 5? He looked like I'd slapped him. Our entire relationship? I was already in the service when we met. Already an operator. I couldn't tell you without clearance. I set down my coffee cup. And honestly, Thomas, you never asked. You never questioned why I was struggling to find work despite having a graduate degree. You never wondered why I speak German without an accent despite supposedly learning it from a language app. You saw what you wanted to see. A woman who needed you. Who made you feel important. That's not... I didn't... He was floundering. Trying to find solid ground. You called it my little security job. I continued, my voice still calm, still level. You joked about it with your friends. You told me I should try the coffee shop because they were hiring baristas. You planned to move us to Munich without asking me. You wanted me to have kids and stay home and be a real mother. I leaned against the counter. You never once asked what I wanted. Because you assumed you already knew. Thomas's face hardened. The shock was wearing off, replaced by anger. So what, this is my fault? You lie for 5 years and somehow I'm the bad guy? You're not the bad guy, I said. You're just exactly who you appeared to be. The problem is I wasn't. Were you ever going to tell me? No, I admitted. I was planning to disappear tomorrow. Divorce papers would arrive next week. You'd come home to an empty apartment. He stood up so fast his chair fell over. You were just going to leave? Without a word? That's what extraction means. Extraction. He said the word like it tasted bad. You talk like you're in a movie. This is insane. You're insane. Maybe, I allowed. But I'm also very good at my job. Better than you ever were at yours, actually. That promotion you're celebrating? Your numbers looked good because I've been ensuring certain competitors experienced technical difficulties that benefited Siemens. You're welcome. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You've been manipulating my career? Incidentally, my actual mission had nothing to do with you. But when I noticed opportunities to make your numbers look better, I took them. Consider it a parting gift. Thomas grabbed his phone, his fingers moving fast. I'm calling someone. The police. The embassy. Someone. You can try, I said. But my credentials are genuine. My diplomatic status is genuine. And frankly, Thomas, you don't have the clearance to know what I actually do. They'll tell you nothing, and then they'll suggest you sign a non-disclosure agreement. He stopped dialing. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm tired, I said honestly. Tired of being small. Tired of playing a role. Tired of watching you and your friends make jokes about the unemployable wife. I moved toward the bedroom. Tomorrow night, you're supposed to have that dinner party. Your colleagues, Stefan's boss, all of them. You wanted me in that black dress, quiet and decorative? What about it? I won't be here, I said. But I left something for you in the living room. A gift? For your dinner party. His eyes narrowed. What kind of gift? The kind that tells the truth. I left him standing in the kitchen and went to the bedroom to pack. Not everything. Most of it would stay behind with the Mira Weber identity. Just essentials. Documents, a few clothes, items that mattered. Thomas appeared in the doorway watching me. You're really leaving? Tomorrow. 3 a.m. A car will pick me up. And then what? You just vanish? Something like that. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, did you ever love me? I stopped packing and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd married, shared a bed with, cooked dinner for, played wife for. I thought I did, I said. In the beginning, I thought maybe I could have both. The mission and the marriage. The work and the life. I zipped my bag closed. But you didn't marry me, Thomas. You married a version of me that I invented. And the real me? You've spent 5 years making sure she knew she wasn't good enough. That's not— It is, I interrupted. Every time you called my job little, every time you told me to be quiet around important people, every time you made decisions for us without asking, you were telling me exactly what you thought of me. I shouldered my bag. The tragedy is you were wrong. And now you'll spend the rest of your life wondering who you were really married to. I walked past him, toward the door. Mira. He caught my arm. Or Hoffman. Or whoever you are. I need time to process this. You have until tomorrow night, I said. After that, I'm gone. I spent Thursday at the shopping center, my last day as a security guard. Klaus was confused about why I seemed so cheerful. You win the lottery? He asked. Something like that, I replied. At 4 p.m., I clocked out for the last time, said goodbye to Klaus, to the other guards, to the job that had been perfect cover and perfect torture in equal measure. On my way home, I stopped at a copy shop. Picked up the package I'd arranged yesterday. A thick folder professionally bound with a note attached. Back at the apartment, Thomas was drinking. Whiskey, straight from the bottle, sitting on the couch staring at nothing. Don't forget, I said. Dinner party tomorrow, 7 p.m. I can't have a dinner party, he said dully. My wife is a spy. Former wife, actually. I signed the papers this morning. They'll be delivered Monday. I set the folder on the coffee table. And yes, you can. In fact, you should. It'll be memorable. He looked at the folder. What is that? The gift I mentioned. Open it tomorrow before your guests arrive. Mira. Goodbye, Thomas. I spent my last night in Berlin at a hotel near the airport. Morrison had arranged it. A quiet room where I could decompress, where I could stop being Mira Weber and remember how to be Mira Hoffman. At 3 a.m. Friday morning, a black car picked me up. No fanfare, no dramatic speeches, just a quiet extraction, the way it always happened. The driver handed me a phone. Morrison's voice. Your debrief is scheduled for Monday. Until then, consider yourself on leave. Thank you, sir. One question, Agent Hoffman. The package you left for your husband. What was in it? I smiled. The truth, sir. Every operation I ran that intersected with his work. Every competitor I sabotaged. Every deal I helped him close. Documented, sourced, undeniable. Plus a detailed breakdown of my actual credentials, salary, and service record. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. You really don't like leaving loose ends, do you? No, sir. I don't. Friday, 7:00 p.m. I wasn't in Berlin anymore. I was in a safe house in Prague, sipping coffee and watching the news. But I could imagine it perfectly. Thomas, opening the folder at 6:30 p.m., giving himself time before the guests arrived. His face as he read page after page. The operations in Syria, the translations that prevented attacks, the intelligence gathering that saved lives, the medals, the commendations, the classified operations, and then the other pages. The ones showing how many times his success was actually my success. How his career had been propped up by a woman he'd called unemployable. The doorbell would ring at 7 Stefan and his wife. Michael from marketing. The boss with his traditional values. Would Thomas serve them drinks in our apartment? My apartment? Paid for with my money? Would he make small talk, knowing that every painting on the wall, every piece of furniture, every bottle of wine had been purchased by the woman they'd all mocked? Or would he do what I suspected he'd do? What men like Thomas always did when confronted with uncomfortable truths. He'd get angry, defensive. He'd tell himself I was the problem. The liar, the manipulator. He'd rewrite the history of our marriage to make himself the victim and me the villain. And you know what? That was fine, because he could think whatever he wanted. He could tell his friends whatever story made him feel better. But he would always know the truth, that his little security guard was anything but little, that the unemployable wife had been better at her job than he'd ever been at his, that he'd spent 5 years married to a woman he'd never really known. My new phone buzzed. A message from Morrison. Your father called. Wants to know if you'll be home for Thanksgiving. Home. Montana. The ranch. My father, who actually knew who I was, who'd trained me from childhood to be strong, to be capable, to never apologize for being good at things. I typed back, tell him yes. I'm coming home, because that was the thing about being a ghost. You could disappear from one life and reappear in another. You could shed identities like snakeskin. You could be whoever the mission required. But underneath it all, underneath the covers and the lies and the operational necessities, you were still yourself. And I was done pretending to be small. 3 months later, the email arrived on a Tuesday. I was in Addis Ababa, working security detail for a diplomatic mission, when my personal email, the one only family and a few select people knew, pinged. From Thomas Weber subject. I understand now I almost deleted it. Almost, but curiosity won. Mira, or Hoffman, I still don't know what to call you. I'm writing this because my therapist says I need closure. I think that's bullshit, but here we are. I opened your folder that night before the dinner party. Read every page? Twice. I still don't believe half of it, but I called the number you left, the one at the State Department, and they confirmed your service record. At least the parts they could legally confirm. I canceled the dinner party. Told everyone there was a family emergency. Stefan thinks you had a nervous breakdown. I didn't correct him. The divorce papers arrived. I signed them. What else could I do? Here's what I can't figure out. Why marry me? If you were this important operative with this incredible career, why waste time playing house with someone like me? My therapist says maybe you wanted to be normal, to have a regular life. I think that's generous. I think maybe you were just bored and I was convenient. Either way, you were right about one thing. I never really knew you. And now I'll spend the rest of my life wondering who I actually married. I hope whatever you're doing now, wherever you are, you're happy. Or at least less tired. You said you were tired of being small. I'm starting to understand what you meant. Thomas P.S. They offered me the Munich transfer. I'm turning it down. Doesn't feel right, knowing you were the one who made it possible. I read it 3 times, then closed my laptop. My partner on this mission, a former Marine named Jackson, noticed my expression. Bad news? No, I said. Just closure. From what? From being someone I'm not. Jackson nodded like he understood, and maybe he did. Most people in our line of work had left someone behind at some point. Had burned a bridge, abandoned a life, disappeared in the night. It was the price of the work. The cost of being a ghost. But sometimes, just sometimes, the people we left behind figured it out. They understood, even if they didn't like it, that we were never really theirs to begin with. That night, I sat on the balcony of my hotel room, watching the lights of Addis Ababa spread out below, and thought about Thomas reading that folder, about his face as he realized how thoroughly he'd underestimated me, about the dinner party that never happened, the guests who never learned the truth. Would it have been kinder to just disappear? To let him think I'd run off with another man or had a breakdown or simply couldn't handle being married anymore? Maybe, but I'd spent 5 years being kind, being small, being quiet. And where had that gotten me? I pulled out my phone and typed a reply. Thomas, I married you because I wanted to believe I could be both. The operator and the wife. The ghost and the woman. I was wrong. Some people are built for normal lives. For dinner parties and promotions and planning futures together. They can compartmentalize, can separate work from home, can be one person at the office and another person at home. I'm not one of those people. For me, the work isn't something I do. It's something I am. And pretending to be anything else, pretending to be your version of who I should be, that was the lie. Not the operational cover. The pretending you asked if you were convenient. The honest answer is yes. You were safe. You were exactly what I needed for the mission. And for a while, I convinced myself that was the same as love. I'm sorry for that, but I'm not sorry for who I am. Not anymore. You'll be fine, Thomas. You'll meet someone else, Someone who actually wants to be quiet at dinner parties. Someone who thinks your promotions are impressive. Someone who fits the life you want. Just do me one favor. Don't tell her she's small. Don't make her feel like she needs to shrink to fit your expectations. Because someday, you might wake up and realize she was bigger than you ever imagined. Mirai sent it before I could second-guess myself. Then deleted both his email and my reply. Closure, like Thomas said. Even if it was bullshit. Below me, the city hummed with life. Somewhere in those lights, people were living normal lives. Getting married, having kids, building careers that didn't require security clearances and classified briefings. I could have had that. Could have been that. But I would have been miserable. Because this, the missions, the danger, the constant chess game of intelligence work, this was who I was. Not despite the difficulty, but because of it. I wasn't meant to be small. I was meant to be the ghost. And finally, after 5 years of pretending otherwise, I was free to be exactly that. My phone buzzed. Morrison.new assignment, Morocco, high-value target. Are you available? I smiled and typed back, always. Because that was the truth Thomas would never understand. I wasn't running from anything. I was running toward everything I was meant to be. And I wasn't tired anymore. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.